Hey, how's it going?
All right.
How's it going, Madam President? Good to be back, isn't it? Yeah, come in a couple of weeks.
Right.
All right, so tell us, what big plans do you have for 2026? New leadership, new faces? Tell us all about it.
So one of the main things that we are doing, we're going to continue to increase the visibility of the council. We plan on having pen and paper meetings, inviting you all to a conversation about what's on our agenda, what our priorities are. So that's the one thing that we're going to do. We're also going to really work really hard to get our meetings back out in the community. We recognize it is somewhat hard and challenging at times to get to the city-county building to pay for parking. So I'm encouraging the chairs to take those meetings out to the community. Also, the same thing for our budget process. We want to make sure that we take those meetings out to the community and allow them to share their concerns, their comments about how we're actually spending taxpayer dollars in our community. We'll continue to talk about public safety, looking at the root cause of crime in our community, and then also working around how do we improve infrastructure in our city.
How is the council relationship going to be with the mayor? Because obviously you guys are a co-equal branch of government.
Yeah, look, I look forward to working with the administration. We're a big tent party, right? And so we welcome different views, different positions on the various proposals that comes before this body. But again, we look forward to working with the administration, working specifically with the mayor to move our city forward.
Yeah, so this isn't your first time as, council president.
It is not.
How do you plan to differentiate yourself from Bob Osley?
So it's not about separating myself. One, the obvious, I'm a female in this position, and our city is used to having men in these roles, and so that right out the gate is the thing that's going to be different from me and the many other individuals who have served in this capacity. I'm a female. I approach issues very differently than my male counterparts, and so that's the first thing that you're going to notice. But then also, we have created a team that is prepared to work together to move the needle on a variety of issues. And so, again, oftentimes as leaders, we like to do things do it solo and not necessarily bring in people. But we have committed to work together, the vice president, the majority leader, and the minority leader. So you'll see more of a team approach as we move forward.
On the issue of data centers, obviously it's going to be a big deal going forward. What is your position on data centers? I know Pike is possible because Pike has a lot of open space, and so did Franklin Township for a while.
So I do think it's important that we take the time to do the research, to have the conversations about data centers. All data centers are not created equal, and that's something that we are really going to have to spend some time working through and understanding.
What about some of the abandoned, bigger properties? For example, over in Martindale, Brightwood, we have a lot of warehouse space is not being used in certain places.
Yeah, and so again, I'm going to look for the counselors that represent those areas to lead us and guide us. But again, one thing that we're going to do collectively is do that deep dive into data centers.
On the issue of education, some of your critics believe you're not doing enough to support Indianapolis public schools. Do you have a response to those folks?
Yeah. So as my role as a member of the City-County Council, my role is very limited. I did serve on that task force to come up with a recommendation. I did support the recommendations that were voted on by the majority of the members of that task force. Now it's up to our state legislators to decide the fate of IPS.
The last time you were president, we had an interesting time here.
Did we?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Expect anything like that going forward?
Well, I'm optimistic that will not happen, but again, it is politics, right? So I'm prepared for whatever comes forward.
Thank you.
Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So, Mike, your thoughts on the whole data center? Because I know you have an IT background, so you have a little bit of a different expertise than maybe some of the other fellow counselors.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get the community involved, number one. That's why we were successful in Franklin Township to begin with, is because so many people came out. And that's what we've got to encourage people to do, is ask the questions, show up to the meeting, and see what's actually behind the curtain and understand what is in that development. But having a blanket moratorium or even a proposal like that isn't going to work, because we're not going to learn from those situations. We learned a lot from the Franklin Township situation because we had all these questions, and that's what I'll encourage people to do. Always show up, be a part of the conversations, and then we'll make the decisions.
Do you think with this new leadership in state that you're going to see some changes in how the council operates, or are you expecting more business as usual?
So given our proposals earlier, we have a little bit of pessimistic perspective that we will see business as usual. And the bad part is it hurts constituents, right? There's things like we haven't had constituent management software anywhere. The entire going into 7 years, and there's nothing that we have for that. We have 3 members that support 25 people within our council office. I mean, we control the budget, but we're not setting us up for success and setting up our constituents for success. And after 7 years, I expect to see the same thing, and that's why we proposed some alternate options for folks this afternoon, but didn't pan out. But we still need better leadership in the city of Indianapolis.
Still optimistic for this year?
Always optimistic for this year. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to keep pushing proposals through, right? I'm not going to stop doing that. We're going to look at the spring fiscals. We're going to look at more public safety packages. We're going to look at infrastructure. We're going to bring the ideas, and if it's on them not to take them, that's on them. But the Republican Party will continue to bring forward ideas.
Any thoughts on the whole issues with IPS these days and who's going to run it, ILEA, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, it's a learning situation. I was watching from afar in the situation. I think the state needs to be very cognizant of that. The people that are in charge are the people that are closest to the ground, and that the state can't look away from that. We've actually experienced a lot of that on these data center things, is where the state sees their perspective, but when we look at when we get down to the ground level, it's not the same perspective they have, and education's no different. And so that would be my encouragement there, is that if the state's going to make change, make sure you're listening to the people that are at the ground level, because they're the ones feeling the impact.
Sir, your proposal, did you put it, okay, was there a moratorium in your resolution on data centers in a special resolution, or?
No, it specifically said that unlike the 3 counties that have called for moratoriums, we would prefer not to go down that path. And instead, we were just encouraging developers to refrain from the activities that our constituents have told us are the things that bother them the most. So this was an attempt to try to find, at least, let's all find some common ground, whether we're pro or anti-data center. At least let's not ban even, but just ask for politely the worst of the worst abuses to be curbed.
And what were some of those abuses that people were talking about?
Well, for example, the Franklin Township data center that had massive public opposition here in the council chambers because it was going to be called down for a rezone. Deep Meta Ventures was the name of the company, and it took an accidental slip-up at a press conference for them to admit that was actually Google. And Councilor Hart was unable to talk with his constituents about it because he had signed a non-disclosure agreement. So we find those to be really bad practices. If this deal really is good, which I'm not saying there couldn't be a good data center deal, but I think it should just be discussed in public, and they should make the case rather than hide behind NDAs.
Now, obviously, when you talk about economic development, obviously you can't put away the whole store. So I guess where's that fine line between public openness and transparency, and also it is an economic development issue?
Yeah, I think that right now it's pretty obvious that a lot of companies want to build data centers, specifically big tech, which is I think frightening percentage of our economy right now, specifically propped up by NVIDIA. But I think that I really think that any good development deal, you should be able to have that conversation in public. And, if Indianapolis gets the reputation as, we're too persnickety here and all of our constituents just have such strong demands that you can't make a profit here, then I guess you can't make a profit. I don't think that's true. I think that there is a way to profitably create new development that also makes constituents happy. I've been in community meetings where people came into the meeting maybe a little bit hostile to data centers, but left much more hostile because the data centers would not commit to local jobs, local development, anything like that. So I've always found our constituents to be very reasonable, and these were just the top issues that constituents had complained about. It was a special resolution, so it wasn't going to have the force of law, but it was going to be a directional, just kind of a opening salvo in a conversation.
Obviously, it didn't go through. A lot of several councils say, we'll study the issue. Like, what is a data center for that matter? Is it a big building out in Franklin Township, or is it, my wife on her, on my computer in her spare room?
Sure. And, I'm a board member of Citizens Action Coalition, and they're always very careful to talk about AI data centers, right? Which it's mostly the hyperscaler data centers, like the one being proposed in Franklin Township that Google withdrew. But it also could include other data centers that have astronomical power and water ramifications that I think do deserve some special attention here. So this attention, my attention here was never, there's a data center run by AT&T that's been there for decades on Washington Street, a little bit outside my district. There's another one at the former Eastgate Mall that I haven't heard any complaints about. They're using a lot of solar power there. Trying to do what they can to reuse a totally derelict property. So, I'm not trying to come with hammers and tear down what already exists. I just want our development to be more responsible and in line with what constituents are asking for pretty clearly.
What about the Martindale-Brightwood area? I know they've been talking about maybe changing some of that into, or maybe even Washington Square Mall into a data center area.
Yeah, so Martindale-Brightwood is the community meeting I mentioned, where when I first went into the Frederick Douglass Library, or Frederick Douglass Park, rather, on the community room on the second floor, a lot of people did come into that room already upset, and some of them were a little bit misinformed about data centers. This was a closed loop, much smaller, not hyperscaler. But they were willing to work with the developer MetroBlocks, and what they wanted was, can you help make sure the construction jobs stay in the neighborhood? Can you help make sure the security jobs? This was not going to create a huge amount of jobs, and everyone admitted that. But what they wanted was something that would not extract from the community, but add to it. And the developer was simply unable to make or unwilling to make any commitments about that. And that's when the room really started turning sour. And then I was also in the street at 25th and Sherman a month or so after that, when residents had gotten so angry that they blocked traffic for an hour, screaming no data center here. So this bill, this special resolution tonight was an attempt to help other developers not walk themselves into that situation. I'm sure MetroBlocks is not happy about how things stand with the Martindale-Brightwood proposed development, or at least the community aspect of it. I'm not quite sure why my colleagues seem not to have read something that had been sitting in their email for 6 weeks, and which I've always offered to answer any questions about. Most of the comments that they made tonight about their concerns did not actually match the text of the resolution, so I encourage readers or listeners to go read it for themselves. Tell me what you think.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.